The Diamond Prajnaparamita Sutra, Indestructible Wisdom of Transcendence. Chapter 1. The Origin of the Dharma Assembly. So here's what I heard. One day, the Buddha was chilling in the country of Shravasti, hanging out at the Jita Grove. Yeah, that's the Garden of Anathapindika. He had a crew of 1,250 monks gathered around with him. At noon, the Buddha got up, ready for his daily meal run. He took the usual route, heading to the houses in the city to beg for some food. After he got the food, he headed back to his spot, ate his meal, tidied up his robes and alms bowl, washed up, spread out his seat, and sat down to kick back. Chapter 2. Subhuti requests the Buddha to teach the Dharma. So, at that moment, the awesome Subhuti, who was among the crowd, walked up to the Buddha, dropped to one knee in total respect, put his hands together and said, "Wow, world-honored one! The Tathagata is amazing at protecting and guiding the Bodhisattvas. He really knows how to give advice to them. World-honored one, how should one who has vowed to attain Buddhahood dwell? How should they tame the mind?" The Buddha replied, Well said, Subhuti. Indeed, the Tathagata skillfully protects and guides the Bodhisattvas, ensuring they remain on the right path. Now listen carefully and I shall explain. One who has vowed to attain Buddhahood should remain steadfast and not let their mind stray. Indeed, world-honored one, I respectfully await your guidance. Chapter 3. The True Essence of Mahayana. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "A true bodhisattva needs to tame their mind like this. All kinds of beings, whether human, non-human, sentient, or non-sentient, whether they can be imagined or not. I've helped guide them all to liberation. Countless beings, from every walk of life, I've led to freedom. But you know what? Not a single one of them has truly been crossed over. Why's that? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva believes in the marks of self, individuals, all beings, or the notion of something being impermanent, then that person is not a true bodhisattva." Chapter 4. The Practice of the Bodhisattva Path. The Buddha said, "Subhuti, a bodhisattva should practice with a mind free from attachment. In benefiting all sentient beings, a bodhisattva should not cling to any forms, such as sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. Subhuti, when practicing generosity, a bodhisattva should not be attached to the notions of self, individuals, sentient beings, or impermanence. Why is this? Because when a bodhisattva lets go of attachment to these marks, their merit becomes beyond comprehension." The Buddha continued, "Subhuti, what do you think? Can the vast universe in the East be measured? No, world-honored one. Subhuti, what about the universe in the south, west, north, the 8 directions above and below? Can they be measured? No, world-honored one. Subhuti, likewise, when a bodhisattva practices giving without attachment to marks, their merit is as immeasurable as the universe itself. Therefore, Subhuti, a bodhisattva should practice in this way." Chapter 5. True Insight. Subhuti. So what am I saying here? Can the Tathagata be seen through the marks of the physical body? No, world-honored one. You can't see the Tathagata through the marks of the physical body. The physical body the Tathagata talks about isn't really a physical body. All marks are just illusions. When you realize that all marks aren't actually marks, that's when you've truly seen the Tathagata. Chapter 6. True Faith is Rare. Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, if there are people who hear and receive today's teachings, will they develop true faith?" The Buddha replied, "Subhuti, do not say such a thing. After I have passed, 500 years from now, there will be those who uphold the precepts and diligently cultivate the path. When they hear these teachings, they will give rise to true faith and recognize them as the truth. You should know that such a person has already planted the roots of Buddhahood, not just in 1, 2, or 3 Buddha lands, but across countless worlds. These roots have long spread throughout immeasurable Buddha realms. Subhuti, even those who hear and believe just one sentence of this teaching, the Tathagata clearly knows and witnesses that these beings have already received immeasurable blessings. Why? Because these beings no longer cling to the marks of self, individuals, all beings, or the concept of impermanence. So, beings either get stuck in constantly switching between the marks of self, individuals, all beings, and impermanence, or they get stuck on the laws of nature and physics, or they get trapped in false paths. That's why the Tathagata always says, "You monks, the teachings I give are like a ferry boat. Once you've crossed the river, you should leave the boat behind. How much more should you abandon false paths of practice?" Chapter 7. No Attainment, No Teaching. The Buddha asked Subhuti, "Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained ultimate, perfect enlightenment? Is there a definitive dharma that the Tathagata can teach?" Subhuti replied, "From my understanding, there is no distinct attainment called supreme enlightenment, nor is there a fixed dharma that the Tathagata can teach. Why? Because the dharma spoken by the Tathagata cannot be grasped, nor can it be expressed. It is neither dharma nor non-dharma. Why? Because all enlightened beings attain liberation through paths beyond words, and no two paths are ever the same." Chapter 8. The Wisdom of the Diamond. The Buddha asked Subhuti, "Subhuti, what do you think? If someone were to offer all the treasures of the 3,000 great thousand worlds as an offering to sentient beings, would the merit they gain be great?" Subhuti replied, "It would be immense, world-honored one. Why? Because merit is inherently limited. This is why the Tathagata says that such merit is vast." The Buddha continued, "If someone were to understand even just a 4-line verse of the scripture and share it with others, their merit would surpass that of the first person. Why is that?" Subhuti, all Buddhas and the methods of liberation taught by the sages are contained within this scripture. Finally, the Buddha said, "Subhuti, the so-called path to awakening is not actually the path to awakening." Chapter 9. Marks are no marks. Subhuti, do you think a Sotapanna would have the thought, "I have attained fruit of Sotapanna"? Subhuti replied, "No, Buddha. Why is that? The term Sotapanna means one who has become a sage, but in reality, there is no such thing as a sage. Only by letting go of attachment to sensory experiences and not giving rise to deluded thoughts can one truly be called a Sotapanna." The Buddha asked, "Subhuti, what do you think? Can a Kalankula have the thought, 'I have attained the Kalankula'?" Subhuti replied, "No, Buddha. Why is that? The term Kalankula refers to someone who is said to return once, but in reality, there's no actual return. That's what is called a Kalankula." The Buddha asked, "Subhuti, what do you think? Can an Anagamin have the thought, 'I have attained the fruit of Anagamin'?" Subhuti replied, "No, Buddha. Why is that? The term Anagamin refers to someone who is said to not return, but in reality, there is no such thing as non-returning. That's why they are called an Anagamin." The Buddha asked, "Subhuti, what do you think? Would an Arhat ever have the thought, 'I have attained Arhatship'?" Subhuti replied, "No, Buddha. Why is that? There is no such thing as a true attainment called Arhatship. Buddha, if an Arhat were to think, 'I have attained the Arhat path,' they would already be clinging to the marks of self, individuals, sentient beings, and impermanence. Buddha, you have said that I have entered deep meditative absorption, that among people I am the foremost, and that I am known as an Arhat who has renounced desires. However, Buddha, I do not think to myself, 'I am an Arhat who has renounced desires.' Buddha, if I were to give rise to the thought, 'I have attained the Arhat path,' then you would not call me one who joyfully cultivates meditation. Because Subhuti no longer clings to the notion of practice, you simply describe my actions as joyfully cultivating meditation." Chapter 10. Adorning the Pure Land. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "What do you think? When the Tathagata was once in the presence of Dipankara Buddha, did he learn any dharma?" Subhuti replied, "No, world-honored one. When the Tathagata was in the presence of Dipankara Buddha, he did not receive any dharma. The Buddha continued, Subhuti, what do you think? Does a bodhisattva adorn the Buddha's land? Subhuti replied, No, Buddha. Why is that? When a bodhisattva adorns the Buddha's land, it is only a skillful means for practicing the bodhisattva path. If one holds the thought of adorning the pure Buddha land, it becomes attachment to the forms of the Dharma. This is not the true adornment of the Buddha's land. It is merely called adornment for the purpose of guiding sentient beings. The Buddha then said, Therefore, Subhuti, great bodhisattvas should cultivate a pure heart like this. They should not cling to the forms their eyes see, nor should they become attached to sounds, smells, tastes, touches, or mental objects. They should let their hearts remain unbound, allowing the purity of their true heart to shine forth. The Buddha continued, Subhuti, for example, if someone's body were like Mount Sumeru, what do you think? Would you say that body is large? Subhuti replied, It is very large, world-honored one. Why? Because the Buddha says it is not the body, but it is called a large body. Chapter 11. Countless and incalculable. The Buddha said to Subhuti, for example, if you were to take all the sand in the Ganges River, and then count how many Ganges rivers there are, what do you think I mean by this? Are the sands in all these rivers numerous? Subhuti replied, Very many, world-honored one. Just the number of these Ganges rivers would be impossible to count, let alone the sand within them. The Buddha said, Subhuti, I will tell you the truth. If a good man or good woman were to fill as many treasures as there are grains of sand in all the Ganges rivers, covering the 3,000 great thousand worlds, and offer them as gifts in the practice of the Bodhisattva path, would the merit they gain be great? Subhuti replied, Very great, world-honored one. The Buddha continued, But, Subhuti, if a good man or good woman, after hearing this sutra, even just holds on to the 4 lines of verse and shares them with others, the merit gained from that would surpass the merit of the previous gift. Chapter 12. Respecting the True Teachings. The Buddha said, Subhuti, when you explain the sutra, even if it's just the 4 lines of verse, you should know that everyone, whether gods, humans, or asuras, should treat that place with the same reverence as a Buddhist stupa or temple. How much more so when someone is able to uphold, recite, or read it? Subhuti, you should know that such a person has accomplished the supreme, rarest Dharma. Wherever this sutra is present, it is as though the Buddha himself is there, and therefore it must be respected, just like the Buddha's disciples. Chapter 13. Proper Upholding of the Dharma. Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, what name should this sutra be given? How should we uphold it? The Buddha responded, This sutra is called the Diamond Prajnaparamita Sutra. With this name, you should uphold it. Why is that? Subhuti, when the Buddha speaks of Prajnaparamita, it is not actually Prajnaparamita. It is called Prajnaparamita. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata speak of the Dharma in any way? Subhuti replied, World-honored one, the Tathagata does not speak of the Dharma in any way. Subhuti, what do you think? In the 3,000 great thousand worlds, are the countless tiny particles many? Subhuti replied, Very many, world-honored one. The Buddha said, Subhuti, these tiny particles are not actually particles. They are called particles. Likewise, the world is not actually the world. It is called the world. Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to see the Tathagata through the 32 marks of a Buddha's form? No, world-honored one. It is not possible to see the Tathagata through the 32 marks. Why? Because the Tathagata speaks of the 32 marks, but they are actually non-marks. They are called the 32 marks. Subhuti, if a good man or good woman were to offer their body and life as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River, it would still not surpass the merit of someone who, upon hearing this sutra, even just holds the 4 lines of verse and explains them to others. Chapter 14. Transcendence of all marks and the quiet nirvana. At this point, Subhuti, upon hearing the Buddha speak the sutra, was moved to tears and sighed, He sighed and said to the Buddha, "Incredible, world-honored one. The profound and subtle wisdom you have just shared is beyond anything I have ever encountered, even since attaining the arhat fruit and the wisdom eye. Buddha, if someone hears this teaching and has pure faith, they will gain the wisdom to realize the true marks of all things. Such a person will achieve the most extraordinary and rare merit. World-honored one, the true marks are, in fact, non-marks, and that is why the Tathagata calls it true marks. World-honored one, today, upon hearing this sutra, I find it easy to believe and understand. However, if 500 years from now, there are those who hear this sutra and can believe and comprehend it, such people will be the most extraordinary and rare. Why? Because they will be free from the marks of self, the marks of individuals, the marks of all beings, and the marks of impermanence. And why is that? The mark of self is, in fact, not a true mark. Likewise, the marks of individuals, all beings, and impermanence are also not true marks. Why? Because transcending all marks is what is called Buddha. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "Yes, yes, if someone else hears this sutra and is not shocked, not frightened, not fearful, then you should know that this person is extremely rare." Why is that? Subhuti, the Tathagata says that the first Paramitha is not actually the first Paramitha. It is called the first Paramitha. The Paramitha of forbearance is not actually the Paramitha of forbearance. It is called the Paramitha of forbearance. Why is that? Subhuti, it's like when my body was torn apart by Kalingaraja in the past. At that time, there were no marks of self, no marks of individuals, no marks of sentient beings, and no marks of impermanence. Why? Because when my body was being dismembered, if there had been marks of self, individuals, sentient beings, or impermanence, I would have developed feelings of anger and hatred. Subhuti, looking back at my past cycles of rebirth, I have been the Rishi of forbearance 500 times. During those times, there were no marks of self, no marks of individuals, no marks of sentient beings, and no marks of impermanence. Therefore, Subhuti, a bodhisattva should transcend all marks and give rise to the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They should not give rise to a mind that clings to marks, nor should they give rise to a mind that clings to sounds, scents, tastes, touches, or dharmas. Instead, they should cultivate a mind that abides nowhere. If the mind abides anywhere, it is not true abiding. That is why the Buddha teaches that a bodhisattva's mind should not rely on forms when practicing generosity. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should practice generosity in this way, for the benefit of all sentient beings. The Tathagata teaches that all marks are, in fact, non-marks. He also teaches that all sentient beings are, in fact, not sentient beings. Subhuti, what the Tathagata speaks is true, unequivocal, and personally verified. Subhuti, the Dharma that the Tathagata has realized is neither real nor unreal. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva clings to the Dharma while practicing the bodhisattva path, it is like a person entering a dark room, unable to see anything. But if a bodhisattva does not cling to the Dharma while practicing the bodhisattva path, it is like a person with eyes who, when the sun rises, can see all forms and colors. Subhuti, in the future, if virtuous men and women are able to receive, uphold, recite, and study this sutra, they will attain the Tathagata's supreme wisdom and perfect enlightenment. The Buddha has already known and witnessed that such beings will have accomplished immeasurable and boundless merit. Chapter 15. The Merit of Upholding the Sutra. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "Subhuti, if there are good men or good women who, in the morning, offer their lives as countless as the grains of sand in the Ganges. At noon, continue to offer their lives as countless as the grains of sand in the Ganges. And in the evening, still offer their lives as countless as the grains of sand in the Ganges. Such beings would do this for immeasurable kalpas, offering their lives in this way. However, if someone hears this sutra and maintains pure faith, their merit surpasses that of the one making these offerings. How much more so if they write it down, uphold it, recite it, and explain it to others." Subhuti, to put it simply, this sutra contains inconceivable, immeasurable merit. The Tathagata speaks it for those who have generated the great vehicle bodhisattva mind, and for those who have generated the highest vehicle, the Tathagata mind. If anyone is able to receive, uphold, and widely spread this sutra, the Tathagata already knows and witnesses that these beings have accomplished immeasurable, boundless merit. These beings are those who shoulder the Tathagata's Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Why is that? Subhuti, for example, those who cling to the marks of self, individuals, sentient beings, and impermanence, and those who practice the Sravakayana, will not be able to understand the sutra, nor will they have the capacity to explain it to others. Subhuti, wherever this sutra exists in all places of the world, whether in the realm of gods, humans, or asuras, it should be revered and offered to. Know that such a place is a stupa. It should be honored with respect, circumambulated, and offerings of flowers and incense should be scattered there. Chapter 16. The Elimination of Karmic Obstructions. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if a good man or good woman in the future receives, upholds, recites, and studies the sutra, and if they are insulted or disrespected by others, the karmic obstructions accumulated from their past actions would have normally caused them to fall into the evil paths, such as the hell realms, the realm of hungry ghosts, or the animal realm. However, because they are now insulted or disrespected in this life, those past karmic obstructions will be eradicated, and they will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, I recall the countless kalpas in the past when I was a great bodhisattva before the Buddha Dipankara. During that time, I made offerings to 840 trillion nayutas of Buddhas, and not one was missed. If, in the future, someone is able to receive, uphold, and recite this sutra, the merit I gained from offering to the Buddhas is nothing compared to the merit of someone who receives, upholds, and recites the sutra. Not even 1 in 100, not even 1 in 100 million billion, and it is beyond what can be expressed by numbers. Subhuti, if a good man or good woman in the future receives, upholds, and recites the sutra, the merit they will gain is beyond what I can fully explain. If I were to explain it in detail to others, their minds would become agitated, filled with doubt and disbelief. Subhuti, you should understand the profound meaning of this sutra. It is inconceivable, and the resulting karmic retribution is also inconceivable. Chapter 17. Ultimately, there is no self. At that time, Subhuti asked the Buddha, World-honored one, how should a good man or woman who has vowed to attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi maintain their determination and keep their mind in check? The Buddha replied to Subhuti, good men and good women who have generated the mind for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should give rise to the following thought. I will extinguish the suffering of all sentient beings, and once all beings are liberated, there will be no beings who have truly been liberated. Why is that? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva holds the marks of self, individuals, sentient beings, or the marks of impermanence, then they are not a true bodhisattva. Why is that? Subhuti, in reality, there is no such thing as a law or doctrine that defines the bodhisattva's path to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Did the Tathagata attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through any teachings or methods from Buddha Dipankara? Subhuti replied, No, world-honored one. According to my understanding of the Buddha's teachings, the Tathagata did not attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through any method from Buddha Dipankara. The Buddha said, Exactly. Subhuti, in reality, there is no method or teaching by which the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if there were a method or teaching through which the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, then Buddha Dipankara would not have predicted, in the future, you will become a Buddha and be named Shakyamuni. In reality, there is no method through which the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. That is why Buddha Dipankara foretold to me, in the future, you will become a Buddha and be named Shakyamuni. Why is this so? The definition of Tathagata is the same as the definition of all dharmas. If someone says, the Tathagata attains Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, Subhuti, there is actually no dharma through which the Buddha attains Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, what the Tathagata attains in Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is neither real nor empty. Therefore, the Tathagata says, all dharmas are the Buddha's dharma. Subhuti, the all dharmas I speak of are, in fact, not all dharmas, which is why they are called all dharmas. Subhuti, just as a person grows in size. The Buddha said. Subhuti replied, World-honored one, when the Tathagata speaks of a person growing in size, it is not a larger body. It is merely called a larger body. Subhuti, the same applies to a bodhisattva. For example, when a bodhisattva says, I will save countless sentient beings, they cannot truly be called a bodhisattva. Why is this? Subhuti, there is no dharma that can be called bodhisattva. Therefore, the Buddha says, all dharmas are without self, without individuals, without sentient beings, and without impermanence. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva says, I should adorn the Buddha land, they cannot be called a bodhisattva. Why? When the Tathagata speaks of adorning the Buddha land, it is not a literal adornment. It is simply called adorning. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva truly understands that all dharmas are without self, then the Tathagata says they can be called a true bodhisattva. Chapter 18. The Unity of All Observations. Subhuti, do you think the Tathagata has a physical eye? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata has a physical eye. Subhuti, do you think the Tathagata has a divine eye? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata has a divine eye. Subhuti, do you think the Tathagata has a wisdom eye? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata has a wisdom eye. Subhuti, do you think the Tathagata has a dharma eye? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata has a dharma eye. Subhuti, do you think the Tathagata has a Buddha eye? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata has a Buddha eye. Subhuti, do you think all the grains of sand in the Ganges River are truly sand? Yes, world-honored one, the Tathagata says they are sand. Subhuti, if you were to gather all the sand from the Ganges River and then count how many Ganges rivers there are, what do you think I mean by this? Are the sands in all these rivers numerous? Subhuti replied, very many, world-honored one. The Buddha then said to Subhuti, in your world, I know all beings, regardless of their mental states. Why? Because the Tathagata says, all minds are not minds, and this is called mind. Subhuti, why is this so? The past mind cannot be obtained, the present mind cannot be obtained, and the future mind cannot be obtained. Chapter 19. The 10 Dharma realms are all illusory. The Buddha asked Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think? If someone were to offer all the treasures of the 3,000 great thousand worlds as an offering to sentient beings, would the merit they gain be great? Subhuti replied, yes, world-honored one. That person would indeed receive immense merit as a result. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if merit had true existence, the Tathagata would not say that one gains great merit. Yet, because merit is without true existence, the Tathagata says that one gains great merit. Chapter 20. Beyond Forms and Marks. The Buddha asked Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen through the physical body? Subhuti replied, no, world-honored one, the Tathagata should not be perceived through the physical body. Why is that? Because the Tathagata says, the physical body is not the true physical body. It is merely called the physical body. The Buddha asked, Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen through the marks of all phenomena? Subhuti replied, no, world-honored one, the Tathagata should not be perceived through the marks of all phenomena. Why is that? Because the Tathagata says, the marks of all phenomena are not the true marks. They are merely called the marks of all phenomena. Chapter 21. What is spoken is not spoken. The Buddha said, Subhuti, do not think that the Tathagata has the mission of teaching the Dharma to sentient beings. Do not see it this way. Why? If someone says that the Tathagata teaches the Dharma, they slander the Buddha and fail to understand my true meaning. Subhuti, the Tathagata teaches the Dharma, yet there is no Dharma that can truly be spoken. This is what is called teaching the Dharma. Then, the wise Subhuti addressed the Buddha, world-honored one, in the future, If there are sentient beings who hear this sutra, will they be able to give rise to faith? The Buddha replied, Subhuti, those sentient beings are not truly sentient beings. Why? Subhuti, what is called sentient beings? The Tathagata merely gives them this name. Chapter 22. Nothing can be attained. Subhuti asked the Buddha, World-honored one, is it true that when the Buddha attains Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, it means there is nothing to attain? The Buddha replied, Yes, Subhuti, it is exactly so. In the great thousand worlds, there is no dharma that can be named Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Chapter 23. Purify the mind, do good deeds. The Buddha continued, Subhuti, all dharmas are equal and without distinction. This is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. It is realized through the absence of marks of self, marks of individuals, marks of sentient beings, and marks of impermanence. By practicing all virtuous dharmas that benefit sentient beings, one can attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, when I speak of virtuous dharmas, the Tathagata says they are not truly virtuous dharmas. This is merely their name. Chapter 24. Wisdom surpasses merit. The Buddha said, If someone were to gather all the treasures from every Mount Sumeru in the 3,000 great thousand worlds and use them to make offerings to sentient beings, their merit would indeed be immense. However, if another person were to receive, recite, and share even 4 lines of verse from this Prajnaparamita Sutra with others, the merit they would gain would far surpass the former. The merit of the former is just 1%, 1,000th, 1,000,000th, or even negligible in comparison. Chapter 25. No beings to be saved. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Do not assume that the Tathagata holds the thought, I should save all sentient beings. Subhuti, do not think this way. Why? In reality, there are no sentient beings for the Tathagata to save. If there were beings for the Tathagata to save, then the Tathagata would be attached to the marks of self, the marks of individuals, the marks of sentient beings, and the marks of impermanence. Subhuti, when the Tathagata speaks of self, it is not truly self, but ordinary people in the world cling to the concept of self. Subhuti, as for what the world calls ordinary people, the Tathagata says they are not truly ordinary people. It is merely a name given to them. Chapter 26. The Dharma marks are not true marks. The Buddha asked, Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be perceived through the 32 marks? Subhuti replied, No, world-honored one. The Buddha said, Indeed, indeed. If the Tathagata could be perceived through the 32 marks, then a wheel-turning sacred king, Chakravartin, would also be a Tathagata. Subhuti then said, World-honored one, as I understand your teaching, one should not perceive the Tathagata through the 32 marks. At that moment, the Buddha spoke in verse, If one sees me in form, if one seeks me in sound, that person walks the wrong path, and shall never behold the Tathagata. Chapter 27. Karma cannot be broken. Subhuti, never think that the Tathagata attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi merely by perceiving all marks as illusory. Subhuti, do not think this way. If you believe that a bodhisattva aspiring to supreme enlightenment sees all marks as completely unreal, it would contradict the law of karma. Why? In the law of karma, all marks neither disappear nor remain fixed. Chapter 28. Avoid acceptance and greed. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if a bodhisattva were to offer treasures filling countless worlds, yet another bodhisattva who realizes the selflessness of all dharmas and attains the patience of the unborn dharma would have greater merit. Why? Because the bodhisattva does not accept merit. Subhuti asked, Why does the bodhisattva not accept merit? The Buddha replied, Immeasurable merit arises naturally in the bodhisattva path, but one must not cling to it through desire or calculation. Thus, the bodhisattva does not accept merit. Chapter 29. Majestic and serene. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if someone claims, the Tathagata comes and goes, sits and lies down, That person does not understand my true meaning. Why? The Tathagata comes from nowhere, goes nowhere, and thus is called the Tathagata. Chapter 30. The Unified Mark. The Buddha said, Subhuti, imagine breaking down the 3,000 great thousand worlds into tiny particles. Would there be many of them? Subhuti answered, Yes, world-honored one. There would be countless particles. But why? If these particles truly existed in the ultimate sense, the Tathagata would not call them particles. Why? Because in the deepest sense, they are not particles. They are only called such. Similarly, Subhuti, when the Tathagata speaks of the 3,000 great thousand worlds, he does not mean it in the ultimate sense as a world. It's only called a world. Why? If a world truly existed in an absolute way, it would simply be a unified mark, a world created by the interconnection of karma and the accumulation of particles. But the Tathagata says that the unified mark is not really a unified mark. It's only called that. Subhuti, the unified mark goes beyond words. It can't be fully described by concepts or emptiness. It's closely tied to karma, and it constantly changes with impermanence. Yet, people in the world are often caught up in their desires, always searching for what they think is the ultimate answer. Chapter 31. Non-arising of Dharma Marks. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if someone claims, the Buddha speaks of self, individual, sentient beings, and impermanence, what do you think? Has this person understood the meaning of my teaching? Subhuti replied, No, world-honored one. This person has not understood the meaning of the Tathagata's words. The Buddha continued, Why is that? Because when the Tathagata speaks of self, individual, sentient beings, and impermanence, they are not truly self, individual, sentient beings, and impermanence. These are merely designations, and thus are called self, individual, sentient beings, and impermanence. Subhuti, one who has awakened to the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should understand all dharmas in this way. For when one is free from attachment to names, dharma marks do not arise. Subhuti, as for what is called dharma marks, the Tathagata says that even these are not truly dharma marks. They are merely designations, and thus are called dharma marks. Chapter 32. The Non-Reality of Karma's Transformations. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if someone were to offer unimaginable treasures, enough to fill countless worlds, to benefit all beings, and if a good man or woman were instead to uphold a 4-line verse of this sutra, recite it, study it, and share its wisdom, the merit of the latter would far surpass that of the former. What does it mean to share its wisdom? It means to teach without attachment to the audience, remaining calm and unwavering like the Tathagata. And why is that? All that exists caught in karma's web, like a dream, painted in bright colors, like a reflection on a fragile bubble, like morning dew, fading with the dawn, like a flash of lightning in the dark night. This is how one should observe and reflect. When the Buddha had finished speaking, the Venerable Subhuti, along with the assembly of monks, nuns, laypeople, and all beings, gods, humans, and asuras, heard his words with great joy. With deep faith, they embraced his teachings and vowed to follow the path he had shown.